Presents.
So imagine, so I've got a network called SkillStruct University with students, and a lot of them are like technically minded, but they're not necessarily having the experience of the real world. So how can you explain to people, I'm new to data science, how can I get started in this?
So the first thing I would say is definitely check out my YouTube channel. No, just kidding. Um,
No, for sure, man.
it's getting started, I think, is a lot more of a mental block for most people than it's more of a perceived block than a real block. The best way to get started with any of these things is to figure out a problem that you have and to just try and get your hands dirty coming to a solution. So you should use whatever tools are the most practical for coming to that solution. So a simple data science problem, maybe building a regression to predict how many points your team will score in the next game. That can be done in Excel. That can be done with pretty basic data. There's no need to like overthink that. You don't have to build a pipeline. You don't have to build a front end. You can just build a tool that does exactly that. And then let's say, oh, I want to expand on that. You can just iterate on it a little more and iterate it on it a little more. And then you have an increasingly improving model as you go. And so I think that the best advice I could give anyone with getting started in one of these fields is to just jump in and to experiment. I mean, you should also go in with the perspective that, hey, I'm probably not going to be great at this at first, but nobody is. I mean, once you get past that barrier, learning data science, learning software engineering, learning any of these fields is really not that hard. There are steps you take. There's incredible resources online. Another thing that I would kind of hazard people is don't worry about what resources you're using. Choose one of them, find one you like, experiment with the resources, but you're not going to be making the wrong choice by going with one resource over another. You know, learning by definition is additive. So just because you learn one thing doesn't mean you learn from one course, doesn't mean you can't also learn from another course and take it later. I mean, these things, I see so many people stressing about like, oh, what course should I take? What course should I take? It truthfully doesn't matter. You're probably going to take, over your lifetime, 50, 60, 100 different courses, right? So are you going to be thinking about all, oh, did I make the right choice with all 50 of these when you're a senior data scientist ready to retire? Probably not, right?
Of course not. Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So continue.
Yeah, I mean, those are the main things. On my channel and a lot of the things I talk about, I really stress creating projects. Projects are good for a couple reasons. So the first is you're applying data science, you're applying software engineering, you're applying all these things to real world scenarios. A project is, in my mind, one of the closest things to what you do on a real job. And it shows a little bit more than that even because it's self-driven. I mean, in your job, you're expected to do these things. In your free time, you have to have some sort of willpower, some drive, some motivation to be picking up projects on your own. And to me, that looks really good for employers, but it also is really good for you. I mean, having an interest in these things, being willing to put in your own time is a little bit of a prerequisite for working in anything technical. If you don't like coding and you have a job where you do it every day, I don't know if you're going to be really happy or that's going to be sustainable for the long term.
Be tough.
The other thing about projects is that they're very shareable. So I can show someone else my work. I can get really good feedback on it. So if you put your work out there, one, you have a higher chance of getting recognition, getting noticed by employers, wherever that might be. But two, you have a place where you can see exactly where you need to improve. So if I'm working on a project and I get stuck on something, one, I get that feedback for myself. It's like, oh, I don't know how methods work in Python classes very well because I've been doing Java a lot for some reason, right? And I'm like, oh, that's an area I clearly need to improve. I can write that on my list of things to learn because it's teased out in that way. The other thing is if someone else sees this project and say, hey, why'd you do it this way? This way might be more efficient. I'm learning something that I wouldn't have necessarily known from my own observations, right? You're getting that outside input to show that, hey, you don't know what you don't know, and this other person is bringing in additional insight that can help you improve and think about some problems differently. The last way that I really recommend learning this field or any technical field is to look at examples of what other people are doing. So Kaggle.com is a great website for data science. There's a ton of data there. There's also a ton of people's kernels. So what a kernel is they have a workbook where they've analyzed the data set, and you can go through and look at all of the code they've written. A lot of the times they comment it very well, so you can see what they were thinking at each of these steps. And one, you get familiar with the packages that are used, you get familiar with the syntax, you get familiar with the thought process, but you also start to build intuition about, okay, I think this person is going to use this technique and at this when faced with this type of like exploratory analysis. You really begin to create this kind of mental map of data science through examples. And to me, that's relatively low effort too. I mean, you should always be trying to apply these things, but just looking over someone's code, even if you don't understand it, it's just reading. You know, it's input. You don't even need the output for that portion of learning. But again, I should stress that you want to be applying those things at some point in the very near future.
This is a SkillStruct presentation. If you like what you hear and see, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.